How did you lose your virginity? I had sex. My long-distance online girlfriend came to visit me. I had my first romantic kiss when I picked her up from the airport. I drove us to a small vacation apartment that I had rented for the first 3 nights. After unpacking some stuff and her calling her mom to say she had arrived, she went to take a shower. When she came out, she wore a negligee and seduced me. My first girlfriend was born without a uterus. After the normal fooling around for weeks and slowly building up to losing our virginities, we finally decided to try having sex. At this point, we obviously weren't aware of her condition, although all she knew was that she didn't start having periods yet and chalked it up to other factors. The issue with being born without a uterus means that the vaginal canal doesn't end up developing because it has nowhere to go. So although the vaginal entrance is there, you're basically pressing your penis into a wall. Needless to say, we were confused and frustrated for several days to weeks of attempting, and would ask other classmates for advice on why it was happening. Finally, a few weeks after us trying and her visiting the doctor, she finally got her diagnosis and we had our answer. The doctor gave her some dilators, which are basically just phallic objects of varying size, for her to basically massage her vaginal canal daily until she formed one. We decided to come up with another solution until then. And long story short, I lost my virginity by having anal sex with her. It was basically a mix of anal and vaginal as she developed her canal throughout the rest of the relationship. P.S. Thanks for the award, smiley face. I was hanging out with some friends at my house and this girl joked about how I wouldn't fuck her right then and there. Well, I wasn't joking. And I did. But turns out that my buddy who was there paid her $25 to do it. Which I'm flattered it costed so little, but at the same time, I mean, my virginity was bought, sold behind my back. So that hurts in a hard to describe way. Edit. You're all making me wish I said no so I could sell my virginity for more XD. Edit 2. An update for everyone wondering when this took place. I am 22 right now. This didn't happen in 1970 when $25 was worth $200. Or in Zimbabwe. I'll let you know. I never lose. My boyfriend thought it wouldn't fit. I thought so too. Spent the first few minutes trying to get it in. Then I got on top and sat on him. One of the best moments of my life. 15 years old at Disney World in Orlando. Met a French girl, 16, in the pool and she took me to her hotel room while her parents were out. I loved Disney. On the bench to the kitchen table in my parents' house. It was my first boyfriend and we had secretly loved each other for years. We finally started dating and we were both afraid to be intimate until finally. In the middle of the night while everyone was asleep and we were eating some snacks, I was like, "Take your pants off," and he jumped up and said, "I thought you'd never ask." I was extremely innocent. Just as a person, I had only ever kissed 2 boys before dating this guy from another school my senior year of high school. He was a piece of shit and I was too innocent and naive to see the warning signs. At first it was great. One night he kept asking me to give him head. I kept saying I wasn't ready and that I didn't want to. He kept pressing it until I gave in. After that, every time I saw him he wanted one. Then, he cheated on me. I found out. Confided in my mom. She gave me terrible advice. Stayed with him. Then, one day, he picks me up. His parents aren't home. Same thing as the blowjob, I kept saying no. Until I gave in. It hurt. It wouldn't fit. He made me get on top so he could push it in. It hurt. It wasn't fun. Right after, he took me home. That was it. I took a shower and cried. I didn't know how I felt. I convinced myself I liked it. But the whole event caused a lot of issues down the road for my mental health. Turns out, he lied about his whole personality. He knew what I was like from mutual friends and sculpted himself to match it. Later on, I found out he lied about being a virgin. He thought it would be easier to get me to sleep with him if he was a virgin too. He also preyed on freshmen at his high school. Apparently. Sorry for the heavy answer. I've never really told anyone. Until now. I visited my long-distance BF for the first time and we were planning to fuck on a bouncy castle in the middle of the night. We got there and the bouncy castle was gone, but I told him I still wanted to fuck him, so he told me to lay down right there on the hill and that's how it happened, lol. It was in an emergency fire exit staircase in school when I was 16. It was in high school. Some girl I had a crush on used me for a one-night stand. We went to her place to watch a movie because her parents were out. We started making out. And then she asked if I wanted to fuck. Of course. I said yes. She rode me like a demon. And we both passed out after. Never did find out how Gothica ended. I was 15. A girl I liked were walking from school to where work together. She said she had some weed and wanted to smoke a joint before work but didn't know how to roll one. So we detoured behind an abandoned building and I rolled the joint and we smoked it. Me being a smart ass, I asked if I get an award for rolling it. Next thing I know, I'm losing my virginity on a concrete slab behind an old warehouse. After close that night at work, we did it again in the place tubes. By putting my boyfriend's dick inside of my vagina. I was 17. Out with my then boyfriend. Also 17. At the beach. In the parking lot. About 10 at night. Typical progression, I'd guess. Making out in the front seat. Moving to the back by climbing over the bench seat. Horizontal making out. Getting pretty worked up. 17. Finally saying, "Oh, what the hell. Let's do this." He had tried before, but I always said no and he respected that. Cars were much bigger then. It was fun. Stung just for a sec, then was nice. Windows were all steamed up. I remember that. No birth control, so that was stupid. This was before HIV by a decade. Maybe I'm Amazed was playing on the car radio. Afterwards. Just laying there. A knock on one of the steamed up windows. Local village cop. Saying, "Move along now." I'm sure he knew what was going on even though the windows were still steamed up. As that was a favorite spot in our town. Nice memory. Actually. A few months later he was going to be drafted due to a low lottery number. So he joined the Navy and ended up in Vietnam. Saw him at a class reunion 40 years later. He remembered that night in the same detail as I did. Along with the song, it was his first time. too. We had a good laugh at our young, passionate, naive selves. Edit. Punctuation. I was 18 at the time. Still in high school. And at a friend's house for a party. We were all having drinks and a good time. As the night progressed, people started getting touchy-feely with people they felt comfortable with. The host and I were on the couch and things were going well when she asked me to go upstairs to look at something. I said sure. Me being inexperienced and not particularly the swiftest, genuinely thought she wanted me to fix something or hang a photo. Well, we got to her room and she gestured to enter, so walked in. I heard her close the door, so I turned around and asked what she wanted me to look at. She pushed me backwards onto the bed, so I was sitting, and she spread my legs apart as she stepped in front of me. She slid her arms under my shirt to take it off, and I felt her damp, scaly touch. It was about this moment that I realized she was actually 30 feet tall and was a protozoic creature we know as the Loch Ness Monster. So I said, "God damn it, Loch Ness Monster, I'm not giving you my virginity, and I sure ain't giving you tree fitty." She slithered away. So I hooked up with somebody else a few months later who wasn't the Loch Ness Monster. I lost mine while listening to the song Closer by 9 Inch Nails. Is it summer already? I thought we were a few months early for the sex havers of Reddit. What's the sexist sex you've ever sexed? Posts. I was dating one man, now it's my husband, when I was 18. I was afraid of sex, I was afraid of pain, and at the same time I wanted it. He never pushed. So, I just set the date. Still was afraid. He asked a couple of times if I really wanted, and that's great. So I could say no and he'd stopped. And, well, I'm glad I did it. At the beginning of the process all my thoughts like what if it'll hurt were completely gone, and he was good. So good I wasn't in pain or blood. Only had some discomfort at the beginning. But he waited for me and didn't rush anything. I remember that when it was over I said something like, "Wow. Now I know why everyone love it X." I, 16 meters at the time, met my brother's friend's sister, 15F at the time, and we made eye contact. Like hell yes contact. We didn't know each other very well at the outset. But shit was on. We ended up together for 5 years at an age when that kind of commitment was unheard of. She was rad. We kept in touch always after our relationship. And I'm sorry to say she died of a heart condition in her 30s. Your first is your first. Happily married now. But my wife has her own first. He visits us occasionally. Love that dude. My virginity story is a 3-parter. Hear me out. Me and my first boyfriend talked about how we'd have sex and arranged to have it in his room when his parents were out. I got on top of him after giving him head, and then his friends all came in, high-fiving me when I was on top before leaving. Needless to say, it killed the mood. So we tried a second time. Both our parents were strict, so we went on a walk and planned to have sex in a glen near to his house. There was nowhere near enough foreplay. It wouldn't fit. And people kept walking nearby. So again, we couldn't do it. We stopped planning it. And then it happened whilst we were both away at a brass band competition in a hotel room. Today, with my GF, was a late bloomer. Started dating a girl at 25. The problem was that she was 19 and young for her age. So it felt creepy. I just kissed, groped, and talked dirty to her. Never pressured her for more. After 3 years, she told me she definitely wanted it. So it was game on. Been a couple 32 years. Married for 21. It was a lot like my first football game. I was left sore and bloody. But at least my dad came. After my best friend's grandfather's funeral, a female friend from our church called me during the repast to tell me that she was home alone. I left my grieving friend to go lose my virginity. It appears that I've given my answer already. Hasn't happened yet. I'm 26, but have not given up hope. My boyfriend, now husband, and I were 17 years old. We'd been dating for 6 months. My parents were out of town, classic, and he came over. It was raining outside, so we stayed in and watched movies in my room. He laid me out on my bed and we had sex. It was great. We've been together for 14 years. Married for 8. Probably the most boring sex story on this thread, but still. It was a wonderful experience. And it didn't hurt at all since he was gentle, and also we did a lot of foreplay. I was 6. Older woman who lived over the back had an adult son. Happened nearly every day between the ages of 6 and 10. Never quite recovered from it. Never quite developed a normal relationship with sex or sexuality. Growing up was rough. My teens were rough. Been in a relationship for over a decade though. So I think I'm doing okay in spite of it. Very strange feeling to just publicly talk about it. Even if nobody will ever see this comment, it feels a bit like I've set down a very heavy bag I've been carrying for 24 years. I snuck my boyfriend at the time into my room at my house one night. It wasn't the most amazing experience. I think both of us kind of wanted to get it over with and not be virgins anymore. I was 17 and on a high school student exchange trip. Staying in a smallish town in Spain. One night we went to a disco with the host kids, and I was hanging out with one of the Spanish girls I'd been crushing on, but was the typical high schooler who was too nervous to even try to dance with her. As we're talking, a guy our age, maybe a year or 2 older, comes over and starts talking to us. My Spanish skills were honestly pretty crappy, HS Spanish FTW. And from what I gathered, he was interested in talking to an American and using the bits of English he knew. The girl was trying to act as a translator, and while her English was pretty good, she was struggling a bit. We still were having a good time, and after a while he offered to go get a round of drinks. While he was gone, she stammered a bit, trying to give me some more details of what I missed during the conversation. It turned out he was hitting on me, and she was nervous about letting me know that part because she was worried how I would react. This was back on the mid-80s, and I was an American, so she really thought I would be very mad and might want to beat him up. I laughed and several times let her know it didn't bother me. When he got back, I thanked him for the drinks and asked her to translate if he didn't understand what I was saying. I told him I was flattered, but I am straight. I also said the next round was on me, which he refused because I was a guest. We talked a little while more while we drank our drinks. He then said bye, and I again thanked him. After he walked away, she had a confused look on her face and asked me why it didn't bother me. I told her that I had a friend who was gay, and I was probably the only person he'd admitted it to. I also told her I was surprised he would find me cute enough to chat up like that, which made her laugh. She told me I was silly, then grabbed my hand and dragged me out to the dance floor. We danced for a while, and when I tried to let her know I didn't really like to dance, she made me dance some more. I finally said I wanted to get another drink, and as we went to the bar, I embarrassingly said I needed to go to the bathroom first. She was waiting for me when I got out of the bathroom and said we should go to a different place to get a drink as the disco charged a lot. She took my hand as we were walking and told me she needed to stop at her older sister's apartment to get something as we were heading to the other bar. I said okay, and when we got into the apartment basically pounced on me. I said something about her sister and she told me her sister was working and we were alone. We ended up on the sofa heavily making out and she noticed I was hard as a rock. As she reached down I stammered that I'd never done this before. She gave me a smirk that pretty much said no shit, then gave me my first blowjob. Needless to say I didn't last long. Somehow during that I'd managed to take her shirt off. When she was done I asked if she wanted me to return the favor and the look of shock on her was amazing. She told me that she'd never had that done before and definitely wanted to try it. I said I'd never done it, another no shit look, and hoped I'd be okay. Using all the skill I'd learned from watching porn videos, I took off her skirt and went to town. I guessed I did okay when her legs pretty much crushed my head. After she caught her breath, she looked down and smiled when she saw I had another hard-on. She told me she'd only had actual sex once before. Note that a lot of this was done through a mix of Pidgin English and Pidgin Spanish, and didn't know a guy could be ready again like that. I told her I didn't either and she laughed. She grabbed our clothes and I thought that was it and time to get dressed, but she walked down the hall and brought me to a small bedroom. She threw the clothes into the room and pointed to the bed. I went over to it and she walked away. She came back and it turned out she'd raided her sister's room for condoms. We figured out how to put it on and then I officially lost my virginity. A girl I had gotten close to at the time was at my place when I was a teenager. We watched Jurassic Park. Can you believe she hadn't watched it? And afterward got into some conversation about boobs. And she went on this rant about how there's nothing sexual about boobs or nipples at all and I could grab hers right now and it wouldn't matter. Because her nipples aren't even sensitive like that. She was wrong. We screwed for like 40 minutes. Which I think is probably the longest I've lasted. She's since told me I was the best she's ever had. It would be flattering if she didn't grow up to be a cunt. I know. Not the cute ending anyone wanted. I don't lose. At a festival. With a girl I'd crushed on for a few months but wasn't sure if she likes girls. Or if I did really. Some cider. Sunshine. 2 hormonal girls. And a tent that was far too small ended up with some drunken sexy shenanigans. This was on day 3 of sun and no showers. So must have been horrific looking back. Fell in love. We had sex. Eventually got married. First, real relationship. It was 2011. I was 19. And started dating a girl I had known in high school. I let her know early on I wanted to wait to have sex until I was married. Just wanted to share that experience with one person. She wasn't a virgin and I didn't care about that. About 2 weeks and she started doing small things like rubbing my dick a little over the pants. Making out with me with just panties on. And grinding on me. I still let her know I didn't want to have sex. A couple weeks later we had moved in with my best friend and were at the apartment watching a movie. She started sucking on my finger and she asked if I'd rather her do that to my dick. I wasn't comfortable with it but she gave the "it's not sex just a blowjob" line. Well, I was 19 and horny so we went to the bedroom and she gave me head. The next night we had a small get-together with some friends. I had been drinking and was pretty fucked up. She didn't really drink and was sober. Party ended and we went to go to bed. She started giving me head and told me she just wanted to put the tip in. I just laid there while she fucked me. After we finished fucking she said, "You don't have to tell me you love me if you don't want to." I still remember her saying that to me. I had rolled away from her and was facing the wall. Flash forward a couple years and we were engaged. We moved about 8 hours away from home for my job. She stayed with me for 2 weeks and then she went back to our hometown to help a friend. What she really did was go back to our hometown and have sex with at least 3 guys that I know of. We broke up, but even after I still tried to working things out with her. I got a job back in our hometown so she wouldn't have to move away from home again. She never got back with me. She proceeded to fuck several of my friends and tried to fuck my best friend. She told my best friend I had broken her heart when I broke up with her for cheating and she wanted revenge. She ended up giving him head but he never had sex with her. He called me and told me everything. It put a strain on our friendship for a long time. But we are still close as brothers now. It took me a long time to realize her leaving was the best thing that could have happened to me. She didn't work, spent my money like crazy, and I found out she had been cheating on me since we had started dating. I will say I did have a lot of fun with her. I have great memories from that period of my life. But all in all, it was time to move on. Wedding night. 1999. Still married. And 4 kids, so still having sex. Both 17. A friend, wanted me to take her virginity as I was quite good looking, but she also didn't want to lose it to an actual boyfriend cause she didn't want to feel committed afterwards. Fair enough. Except we decided to do it at a party and her actual boyfriend was stoned and drunk outside and obviously felt like shit about the whole arrangement and started playing guitar outside the window for us. It was extremely awkward. She left right after as her boyfriend was super sad and wrote himself off. Meanwhile, another girl from the party wanted to fuck me an hour later, which then pissed off the host as he invited her only cause he liked her. All up, I ruined 1 relationship. 1 prospected relationship. 1 party and made 24 teenagers extremely uncomfortable for the rest of the night. Fun times. She kissed me. Suddenly. Her tongue was touching mine. It felt great. Then there were boobs. They were really warm. I felt my pants get unzipped and unbuckled. My mind was swim 8 nanograms. All I could think was OMG 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 OMG. I don't even remember her putting the condom on. She lifted herself onto me. I was 14. She was 16. It happened so fast I didn't really have a chance to wrap my head around what was happening before it ended. I didn't finish. But she did and got up off me. I wasn't really ready for it. I didn't even tell anyone for a few weeks. Even then, it was only my best friend. I wasn't ready to have made that big step yet. I'd only kissed a few girls before that. I definitely feel I should have waited. Had I even known it was a possibility. I had an abusive mother who would make me go days without food as a teen. I lost a lot of weight. Had days where I couldn't move. I was forced to eat rotten food. I had a whole meal of flour tortillas at one point. So one day, as a teenager, I was very hungry and posted myself on a dating app and lost my virginity for $60. I had a good meal that day. My mother became very angry that even though she was starving me, I got food from another source. It only got worse from there. That was the only time, and I didn't have sex for a second time until I was 20. I put my thumb in her belly button. It wasn't that great, so I don't know why people make such a big deal out of it. I was 19. And he was almost 19. I had been with my boyfriend for just shy of 1 year. We had both originally said we wanted to save sex for marriage. But after we'd experimented with other things, oral and hand stuff, we both kind of realized we might not want to wait that long. We'd been tossing the idea around for weeks of when we could try. If we should. When parents would not be around. Etc. I was adamant that we had to wait till someone's parents were out of town because I felt we should spend the night together after. After a weekend away with friends where we slept in the same bed and were touchy under the covers. But didn't want to do anything because our friends right there. We got home, to my place, and started making out immediately. My parents weren't home. And we had a few hours till they would be. He asked if I wanted to have sex and I said yes. So we drove to the pharmacy to buy condoms and lube. When we got back, neither of us had changed our minds. So we went to my room and went for it. Lol. It was pretty good as far as first times go. I think. We're married now. I forgot where I left it. I was 17. He was 19. I knew him from work and had a major crush on him. I was out on a Friday night and bumped into him. Went back to his place and started fooling around. I needed a pee, so we paused our shenanigans. I remember sitting on the toilet thinking, OMG, I'm about to lose my virginity. Went back to his room and we did it. He hadn't believed I was a virgin until he met with more resistance than he was expecting when entering me. He was a very well-endowed guy, not that I was aware of that at the time. Not having any comparisons, and I bled for a few days. He ignored me at work the next day and I overheard him mocking my inexperience to one of the guys, and I felt like shit about the whole thing for a while. And it didn't exactly do wonders for my self-confidence. But at least only my pride was hurt. Not my heart. He didn't deserve the #1 spot on my list. Bumped into him when I was about 24 and I invited him back to mine. It was purely an ego thing for me. I wanted him to want me and show him some skills I had learned in the intervening years. He asked if he could see me again. I said no. Never saw him again. That was 20 years ago. The girl that is now my wife came over. My parents left and teenagers did teenager things. It was clumsy and weird, but still married this hot piece of ass. In my bedroom with my boyfriend. It wasn't good and I stopped it after a bit cause it wasn't doing anything for me. I couldn't actually tell if anything was in there, but it just didn't feel right regardless. I didn't tell him that, of course. Having sex after childbirth was way more emotional and scary lol. 14 with D cups who could pass for 16 to 18 with a 30-yo groomer sports car flashy pretty boy. You shouldn't have to ask why. I was 15 around my 15th birthday, and it was with my girlfriend who was 9 months younger than me. We had been dating for around 4 months and she was my first ever girlfriend. My family had moved in across the road from her and we went to the same school. Obviously. We walked to and from school together. We're on the swim team together. And we liked the same music and TV shows. Our sexual relationship had built up slowly. We started kissing and cuddling when nobody was around. And when we got caught by her mom. She told us that we were okay as long as our clothes stayed on. That gave us more freedom and we took advantage of it. My girlfriend's parents were kind of hippies and much more liberal than our typical church-going crowd. We grew up in Texas, and my girlfriend told me that her mother gave her the talk and got her to the doctor and put on birth control pills. I even had my own talk with her mother. I never really got much sex education from my own parents, but her mom was very upfront about this. She trusted her daughter to make good decisions. But if she didn't like me, or if I was abusing her daughter's trust, she would not hesitate to act. So we got some books on sex, including some books with illustrations, not unlike The Joy of Sex but with less body hair, and we started to do more. It started with me fondling her breasts and touching her pussy. And soon we were going down on each other. It continued like this for 2 months until my birthday was coming up. And she told me that she had a special gift planned for me. Her parents and younger sisters went to visit relatives for Easter and she stayed behind. I pretended to be sleeping over at my other friend's house so I spent a 3-day weekend with her. It was awesome. We took our time and spent the afternoon around each other naked to be more comfortable. And then as we were kissing like that, spontaneously she told me that she was ready to give me my gift, and I already guessed what it was. We had sex about 10 times that weekend and we got good at it. Very good. By the 3rd time my girlfriend wasn't sore. But by the 10th time I was. She was very tight and remains that way. A few days after that we had another talk with her mother. This time both of us, about the experience and the new ground rules where we could have sex in their house. But we had to be quiet and discreet. Her father worked on an oil rig in the Gulf so he was away for about 3 weeks out of every 4. We were teenagers and we mostly complied. Her mother did walk in on us at least once. Including one time where we were in the pool house. As for why? Well, I loved my girlfriend and I still do. We are married and have kids. And we continue to fuck vigorously almost every day. On my wedding night, my wife and I were both virgins. 20 years later we are still happily married. In my aunt's bed while Family Guy was playing on TV. Not with my aunt, of course. But I was house sitting for her and I invited the girl over. Lasted nearly 2 hours. She finished. Multiple times. I did not. Not a brag. It mildly sucked for me. Not that she was bad. Not saying that. She was a lovely girl with a beautiful body. That was when I discovered I have difficulty finishing from sex. F was 14. He was 19. He told me if I loved him I would do it. I was a child. Anyway, he died of a brain tumor a few years back. All of these responses seem joyless. I expected more happy stories. Crying. Nothing assault-orientated. But yeah, that was my first hint that I didn't like sex and was staring down a long road of providing sex for men. Because that's how women care for their partners according to my parents. Then I learned about asexuality. Such monumental relief when I realized I didn't have to have sex anymore. I lost my virginity when I was 20 or 21 years old to a one-night stand. Met the guy at a club. Mutually liked each other. I agreed to a one-night stand because I thought it was about time to have my first sexual experience and there was no sight of a boyfriend. The guy took me back to his. Done what needed to be done. He took me to a cab station and off I went. Cruise ship just before my 15th birthday. On our last night of the cruise, I wound up hanging with an 18-year-old woman in the ship bar whom I'd spoken with a couple of times before. Bartender had a crush on her, so she kept getting free drinks and wound up giving me half of them. After we left the bar, we went up to hang out on an empty deck and started making out before she unbuttoned my shorts and took over. The whole experience exists in half flashes in my mind. I don't remember all of it. Had a crush on a girl for 6 years. Turns out, she had a crush on me too. Started dating. While we were cuddling and kissing in bed, one thing led to another and we had sex. I am still surprised I gave her an orgasm first try. Hope truly isn't lost for everyone. I was 16. Had a crush on a boy at school and let some of his friends know. And gave them my number to give him if he was interested in hanging out. This was late 90s. And he did call. And we talked on the phone for hours. Which led to us becoming a couple. I wanted to be in love with whomever I lost my virginity to. And after some time that box was checked. I rode my bike to Planned Parenthood and got some free birth control pills in case the condom broke. I had seen enough episodes of Maury and Ricky Lake to be terrified of teen pregnancy. We waited for a day when his mom was out of the house and then I pedaled my bike 40 minutes across town in a cocktail dress and we lost our V-cards together. I was paranoid his mom would come home early, so it was not the best experience but not the worst either. By far. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.